Hello and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to Living Cities Earth experience. Please enjoy the next few minutes, and we hope that this video and the ideas from our speakers will change your life to the better. Listen carefully. What particularly talks to you? What might have a chance to change your life and lives of people around you? Also, life of your place and our planet. We believe that you, the leaders of positive change, are those who define the future. So let's work together. And thank you for coming. As we are slowly coming back together, we'll enjoy a 2-minute short video introduction to our event and the Living Cities Earth community and ecosystem. And then we'll slowly start. So I will ask our friends in technical support team to please put on the Living Cities Earth video. Thank you very much.
We are humans.
In this VUCA Bani world, what does it mean to be human? How can we human well?
How can each human feel truly alive?
How can each community and city thrive and evolve?
How can 10,000 cities on our planet interconnect for our collective benefit?
How can we live in harmony with all life on Earth?
These are the questions that brought us together at Living Cities Earth, a very young and fast-growing global collective that started 3 months ago. We are a horizontally organized action community of 25 of the world's leading integral researchers and practitioners, with a total of 300 years of research and leadership that has benefited millions of people in over 1,000 cities. Living Cities Earth interconnects both people and institutions that together reach over 100 countries on all continents. Our aim is to integrate our capacities to human well with 10,000 cities serving Gaia's well-being, and to discover how can we nurture cities as complex, adaptive, living, spiritual human habitats in the right relationship to humans, bioregions, all other cities, and the planet.
We trust that by acting together, now and in the future,
we can learn to human well and help millions of people live happier lives.
In harmony with each other.
And all life on Earth.
Well, what a beautiful start of our discussion. And Alexandra, before I pass it on to you, I will be the junior co-facilitator and you will be our senior co-facilitator. I would like to everyone to ask in our heart, maybe we cannot create 1,000 happy, flourishing and thriving cities. Maybe it's impossible. So this is just a thought to consider as we move into the discussion of how we will them, how we will create them. And there is always this question, right? Are we just dreaming aloud? Or maybe we have something tangible to share with each other and with the world. With this, I pass it on to you, Alexander. Thank you very much. And I welcome all the beautiful, distinguished speakers who are joining our panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lev. And thank you everyone who is here with us for this ongoing celebration. And it truly is a celebration of life, of living and of exploring what it means to live together, but not just together with each other, together with nature and with our constructed world. As we mentioned earlier on, there's kind of these three different natures that we're exploring. And how do we move through all of them and integrate all of them? So we have nature one, which is the living environment around us, the plants, the trees, the birds, the bees. And then we have nature two. This is the domain of cities, the constructed world, the humanly constructed world. It doesn't grow just by planting it, but it is something we can co-evolve. And it has its own co-evolve, and it has its own evolutionary pattern as well within the broader pattern that connects all. Bless you, Indra. And the third level is the nature that is arising in cyberspace, the nature of the artificial intelligence and its own developmental, emergent, and evolutionary paths. All of these come into play when we explore what it means to human well, in the context particularly of a living city, which combines the reach into nature as well as the reach into information spheres. So I'm just thrilled to see the people here. We have so many lovely, amazing people here, from Indra Adnan, one of our guest speakers, David Gershon as well. Thank you for being here. Amazing. We have Alexei Groshenko, who's with us. We have Meg Rivers. We have from Bloom Network. We have Ronit from Leap Forward. And just so we can set the stage, and Anna as well, the people who I'm seeing on my screen at the moment. And thank you for being here. We are going to be looking at the second round of the same topic that we explored yesterday. How could we create, really co-create 1,000 happy, flourishing, thriving cities together? And as Lev just said, that's the ideal. We're not looking necessarily at the 1,000, but we're having that as our aim, as our objective. Where do we begin? How do we co-create that? So some of the people who we have specifically on our panel today, there are 7 of us, including myself and Lev. There is Indra Adnan, who is waving to us now on her screen, so we see who she is. There she is waving. Look at her wave. There she's gone. Okay, we got Indra. We have David Gershon, who just waved anticipatorily, and there he is again waving. David.
I was waving at Indra, but I'm also waving.
You were, but there you are. Good. Okay, good to see you. Meg Rivers, who is now waving to us from there. Good. Now we know where she is and who she is. Alexei Groshenko is waving to us now.
Hello, everyone. So
and he's speaking to us rather than waving, but that's good. And we have Tim Olson, who is someplace around, but probably not on the screen just yet, maybe joining us later. Lev is in the baby mode. In other words, caring for his baby. And we have, that's it, on our guests, but we would love to have all of you join in this conversation. I'm going to type in here just a few more things to set the stage, yes, if you wouldn't mind. I'm going to suggest that we explore this question, something that Lev actually is suggesting. How do we build our ecosystem of partners that serve people in up to 10,000 cities for the benefit of the whole living earth? So how do we build that? How do we co-construct that? And while we're thinking about that, I'm going to share with you a few other things. Let me drop into here, into our chat, also a picture, which I'm going to put on screen in a moment. And that is this picture here. Share screen. And here we are. Okay. So this comes from a very interesting presentation that I heard. I didn't come up with this, but the notions of from strings to ropes. The idea that each of us is a string in the web of life, if you will. And how is it that we can weave from strings to ropes? I love this idea. This is certainly something we can do in cities, and it's certainly something we're seeking to do right now in this session. How do we weave our narratives together? As Lorna was talking about in one previous session, how do we take the stories that are our own stories and create our collective stories, our collective narratives. So the framing around this involves not only these connections between love and focus and empathy and presence and vision and happiness and aliveness and vitality. So beautiful ways of looking at this and holding this, but also has us think about moving from strings to ropes, building bonds, in what it calls for, the applied mindfulness that it calls for. And the sensory integration that you can see in this little diagram here, even with the colors, it helps us bring in this notion of the different senses and what's at play here. So the sensory integration helps us have this emotional balance, and emotional balance is another way of expressing happiness, another way of expressing aliveness. So my exploration with us today, I'm going to stop the sharing here, is to think a little bit about the way we can restore our relationships with life. And that means restoring, having a story, a new story. What is our story? How do we restore these frames? And then how do we recreate, co-create and recreate our identity, our belongingness, our bonds? What is the hour that's at play? And how do we remember this belonging? Remember, bring our membership back into our being. Well, this is enough of my waxing on. I will have more things to say here, but just to remember that this is a Petri dish right here. All of us who are engaged in this, it's a very nice, comfortable one. It's kind of virtual as well. David has a lot more books in his background than I do. Just noticing. But this is the idea of how, in this Petri dish, how can we reach out, connect, support, and co-create and co-emerge the story of the living city. So I'm going to ask you if you could begin by exploring that question that I put there a little bit earlier around how do we build our ecosystem of partners, and what it is that you could bring to the table to help explore this. I'm going to ask you to begin, whoever you know what, I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to, in the sake of flow, I'm going to call on people. I'm going to go first with it, just simply the list that's in the agenda on the program. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I've been speaking too long, so I'm going to pass it on to Indra Adnan.
Thank you, Alexander, and my gratitude, but also admiration for being in this space for as long as you have been today and yesterday. My goodness, what a marathon you are all running. But I do want to start with a slightly shift of emphasis, if that's okay. I just was really enjoying your last slide, and I could feel it very much in my body and in my consciousness, this self that I could become, or the society that we could become. But in the Alternative Global, which is the platform that I founded about 6 years ago, what we've discovered is that in order to really help human beings, the evolution of human beings get traction, we need certain containers and we need certain infrastructure. Because unless we can create these kinds of architecture, if you like, for our society, then we run the danger all the time, as we already are currently experiencing, of our our economic political system dividing us and sabotaging our progress all the time. So the way that we are today, we can't really move forward with all of our good intentions because the economic and political structures are constantly sabotaging our ability to go forward. And may I just share a couple of slides really fast? Is that allowed, or is that too many? Okay, let me just do this.
Absolutely, please do. Oh, and Indra, if you could, I'm going to ask this of all of our speakers, just a couple of words about yourself so we know where to
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so I am a writer, psychotherapist, and mother, but probably the best description of me is a political entrepreneur. So for the last 10 years, I've been struggling with having come out of the world of conflict transformation and having my own clinical psychotherapy practice, I moved into the world of politics because I could see that, in a sense, this was still controlling the public space. And when I actually stood to be an MP, I found that the system is so broken that I had to really step away from it in order to imagine a different kind of politics or a different kind of form of human agency that could deliver on the goals that we've all been sharing. But I'm going to do this very fast. So this is, The Alternative was founded 7 years ago with the question, if politics is broken, what's the alternative? 5 years later, we named this idea Planet A, which is really a kind of a symbol, if you like, of the world that we're already living on, but living on it with a very different perspective of the future. So all of us here might say that we're living on Planet A, but the public space itself is more like a public space that's trying to escape to Mars. You know, it's one that is actively self-destructing. How do we change this public space? You know, and I think a lot of you will be familiar with this kind of 4-quadrant approach, that there is an aspect of the well-being of every individual, but also what are the actions these individuals take. And that's in the bigger picture of where are our shared values and what is the possibility of social justice alongside addressing all of the other crises. But then what is the power structure? How do all of our efforts link to power? I think without addressing all of these 4 things, we're not going to make progress. This is really just a quick slide that acknowledges, yes, living cities, all kinds of community agency networks. This is a phenomenon that has been growing over the last 30 years. There's no question that these are coming into being. People are coming together in the face of a political structure that divides them. Somehow there is an impulse. However, some of these are very homogenic entities, people of the same class and color and culture, and others are trying to become more than that. Others are trying to really acknowledge and include, for the sake of effectiveness, for the sake of agency, for the sake of aliveness. They are looking for more diversity, but mostly so that in communities, bioregions, cities, we won't fall prey to this easy polarization, this easy division. So at The Alternative, what we've done this year is we've moved into this idea that we need at least 4 things constructively. On the top right there, you'll see the thing that you're pointing at, Alex, the community agency networks of community agency networks, so to speak, the network of networks of people coming together in the living cities. This is absolutely core. However, without it being infused in a way with some sort of shared practice that helps individuals within those cities, within those bioregions, to be able to upgrade themselves in a way, if you like, to become cosmolocal. I think you described what cosmolocalism is before. For us, this is essential. We are in a way already cosmolocal, but we're not self-consciously so. We're more helplessly so at the moment. And this really invites another level of practice beyond what we're already doing with our meditation and with our self-observation. We need social practice that we can share. The third thing that we can't do without is some form of media system that carries the news from all of these living cities at the deepest level. News, a comms system between each one of these cities is very important, obviously, to share tools and practice. But equally important is some sort of amplification, some sort of media system that can create new forms of media, because of the message, so to speak, as Marshall McLuhan would say. We need to be able to attract people towards this new possibility, people who until now are not showing any interest at all. So the media really has to be designed and created, in the interest of people who are not interested in what we're doing. So we need this new media system. And finally, over here, a new political system means for me that we need to develop what Václav Havel would have called a parallel polis. We need a way for people to be able to come together, create governance structures, develop a new democracy, really independently of the current structure, and then form some sort of partnership with the current structure. So those two legs there, I think of what the beautiful, eco-civilizational leg that you can see, that's really our efforts should really develop a parallel polis. We should be able to create governance amongst ourselves, make decisions, get things rolling, with or without, in a sense, the approval, of the current system. We have to be able to move ahead of it, but not to destroy it, not to try to overcome it, but to really work in partnership with it. But the bigger story, if you like, should be coming from this other leg, this parallel polis. And through the soft power of our endeavors, eventually we will be the ones who will be shaping the system in the future. So that's really my big overview, if you like, of at least we need 4 things, not one, is my view. But there are four within one. Each one of those systems contains the other 3. They're interdependent. So I hope that's clear enough and not too long. Thank you.
Fantastic, Indra. And really, really beautifully put together and very clearly expressed. Thank you so much. And in fact, I'm reminded of Indra's net, where everything is reflected in the universe, in the spheres of all being. So we are all reflections of each other according to that. And here's your net with the embeddedness in it. All right, before I wax too much on that, but I love what you shared. Thank you so much. Would you do us all a favor, please, and put any contact information that you would like and any links that you would like into our chat, and that way we can have that with others here as well. So thank you. And now let me move on to David Gershon. And rather than me doing the presentations, which I know I would bungle, I have such respect for each and every one of our speakers. David, could you perhaps say a few things about, just a few, because it could go on for a while, I know, with all that you have done and are doing, but just a few things about you and your passion and what brings you here, and then what you have to share. Thank you.
I will. Thank you. Thank you for having me and inviting me. And let me just say, Indra, that what you said was a perfect segue into where I can go. You built a beautiful context. So I have been on the journey of reinventing the planet for some 4 decades, have built of recent, over the last 6 years, what we call a grand strategy to reinvent the planet that has 5 levers: climate, peace, development, money, and knowledge. Each of them has robust strategies associated with it. And I have been working around this notion of second order change or transformative social change through a book I wrote called Social Change 2.0 for some time now, which is undergirding all of these strategies, which is the counterpart to 1.0, which is the political system's model of trying to create change. So it creates a whole new capability in the system. So let me speak to parallel polis, a whole new term of art that I've not ever heard before. So we're building parallel polises, poli, in 2 distinct spaces. One is around climate through what we call cool cities, and the subset of that, which is cool neighborhoods, which is basically 150 households in adjacent blocks of cool blocks, we call them, who are essentially autonomous and make their own decisions. And we have 32 actions that they work with around regenerative neighborhoods, around resilient neighborhoods, and around carbon neutral neighborhoods. In fact, the previous speaker, Marilyn Hamilton, is testing this out in Finhorn as we speak. It's also being tested out in Copenhagen, Berlin, and a number of other cities. We've worked over the years with several hundred cities, so we've been building this knowledge very systematically. It's based around very specific metrics of measurable behavioral change, carbon footprint reduction, and specific actions that enable disaster resiliency. So on average, we've been reducing footprints by 31% and 10,000 pounds. And we've been able to do this successfully over many decades, 40 billion pounds worth so far and counting. So that's one puzzle piece. And the other one grows out of an initiative I did in 1986 called the First Earth Run. We passed the torch of peace around the world, and 1 billion people witnessed it. And we engaged 25 million people, 40 heads of state in 62 countries. And wherever the torch of peace went, all war stopped. So we started shifting the collective belief system into something that no one had seen before. And so fast forward some 4 decades, and now we're moving this idea forward with a very specific timeline. It's called Peace on Earth by 2030. And we've created a game based on 7 practices that came out of that. And we're creating Peace on Earth zones, or PO zones. And we now have 7 of them, 4 across Africa, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in the US. And we are getting ready to start 1,000 of them over the next 2 years, essentially by the end of 2024. And we're also looking to have 40 million participants, which is 1/2%, the tipping point for shifting consciousness. We have 20 partners that we have engaged, including this network, to facilitate this through the various communities that they engage in. So we have some major experiments going on. We should cross-pollinate our thinking, Indra, on the parallel palace, because we're clearly climate action networks, for sure, using that frame. I would say the major social experiment we have right now is around cooperation for the common good around partner organizations. We all may know about this notion of the Cambrian Revolution some 800 million years ago, when we moved from single to multicellular organisms, and that was an evolutionary shift moment. We need to do the same now. We have lots of isolated groups trying to do good, but they don't know how to cooperate for the common good. And until we learn how to do that, we will have minimal impacts. So we have built a model to do that around our Peace on Earth zones and our partnerships. How we were successful with the Earth Run was we did that. We got all these groups to cooperate for the common good. We had really thousands of them. So we have 20 and counting. And right now, if anyone has an interest in this idea, and it's a bold idea, we're basically shifting the timeline and we're giving humanity a specific by when date. Let us know, because we're looking to start lots of Peace on Earth zones and have lots of teams, ultimately 25,000 in the next 20 months. And also, if you have any interest in cool blocks and cool neighborhoods, let us know, because we are looking to have 100 carbon neutral cities by 2030. That's our plan. And we're raising a bunch of money to enable that to happen all across the world. So those are my 2 big things, and my parallel polis social experiments and community action networks. I love that name. So let me pause there. I could say a lot more, but that gives you a sense of what we're up to.
David, thank you so much. And indeed, I'm actually going to ask you to say a little more just now, and then we'll come back to further. But if I understand correctly, you're also involved with these compassion games, the survival of the kindest. And one of the aspects of those games has to do with mayors as leaders in the compassion movement. And we're particularly interested in connecting the Living Cities initiatives with mayors, because we want to get to the 10,000 cities around the planet. So can you tell us a little bit about how and if this, what you're doing, and if your connection with that initiative, if I'm not mistaken, could connect with this as well?
Well, I know the compassion games quite well, and I would say it's in an early stage of maturity relative to getting mayors and onboarding compassionate cities as an idea. I would say there are a number of networks that we're connected with. That's one of many. And we should, again, have a conversation offline that could begin to look at that idea. There's also Peace Cities. There's compassion games and compassion cities. There's a lot of organizing principles for these, shall we say, values and ideals. The challenge that I have found in working with mayors, of which I've worked with many over the years, is there has to be a robust strategy and a set of tools that enable them to want to engage. Also, if it can be associated with some kind of funding stream that gets their attention also. So how to build a strategy around that would be something I'd be happy to discuss. We've had to do that. We've worked with, as I said, some 200 cities through our climate work over the years, and we've learned how to work pretty effectively with the political system, the local political system, which is really open if you present them with the right opportunities. So I would say it's a longer conversation. Happy to have it with you guys, and happy to partner with you and figure out how to optimize what you're doing.
Fantastic. And indeed, that is, wow, that's exactly the desired, let's say, outcome. If we were to say, what would you consider success from this whole event? It would be what you just expressed, the interest, the happiness in partnering, in connecting, and then being able to bring forward our mutual scaffolding, linking up and lifting up, as Jude Carvin would say. Thank you so much, David. We're going to definitely continue with these conversations with you and with Indra.
I think this is the growing edge, and we're all ready for it. I think maybe we have to reconvene this panel also. It sounds like we got quite an interesting crowd here to get cross-pollinating all our ideas.
Absolutely. As Churchill once says, this is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but perhaps the end of the beginning. Yes, but anyway, we're still in the middle right here, so wonderful. Let's move on then, please. Meg Rivers of Bloom Network, perhaps you could share. And David, by the way, if you could put some of the links in the chat,
yes,
that would be excellent. Thank you. And Meg, I would invite you now to share a little bit, first about yourself, and then about what you're up to in this regard.
Hi, how's my audio? Good?
Audio is great. Video is beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here. I definitely see why you invited me with this particular group of people. And so I am a co-founder of BloomNetwork.earth. I'll say that again, BloomNetwork.earth. We spent 14 years creating a platform to help create a hub, a permanent, indelible hub of regenerative culture in every watershed on the planet to protect first water and then food and life in the biosphere. I see so many parallels with what David was just talking about. We definitely believe that the neighborhood association is most likely the autonomous, powerful organization that we want to see. Sometimes the city, in terms of the government, can become an extension of that effort. I would say that to what Indra said, Bloom Network has all four of the qualities that she thinks is necessary, and I believe that she's right on. A new form of media because of the message. Bloom Network is primarily a media company designed to make being a steward of your environment the sexiest thing that ever happened. I feel like a lot of the efforts towards land stewarding have been in this sort of, I like to call it the dusty bean can in the basement kind of place, where it's, your grandparents' counterculture 60s. It's an extension of that, but we haven't had a resurgence, a rebranding of environmentalism. And in Bloom Network, we really have a unity of culture that we see in regenerative culture that arises naturally from the idea that each of our organizers in the different watersheds and cities had. And it was the question, what lies beyond sustainability? I was inspired by the 60s and 70s to become sustainable and net zero and cool neighborhoods in my cool household my cool lawn, and work towards, zero waste, carbon, net zero, things like that. What lies out beyond that? And when you get past sustainability, you start to give. And so that natural instinct to start to produce at your own expense a gift that you care to give society is what Bloom Network intends to capture, right? We didn't invent regenerative culture, we're just catching people's hearts and efforts as they bloom. That's why it's called Bloom Network. It's like blooming forth from the place in your life where you realize, wow, I did it. I'm sustainable. I'm so green. I can't be greener. How can I be greener? How can I be more? How can I give more? How can my persona in the world become a gift in the universe? And so at Bloom, the blooms can take many forms. They can be a coffee shop. They can be a wellness center working with unhoused people. They can be a farm. They can be a commune. They can be a neighborhood. They can be anything. And we give them the templates and the information to do that. And so we are also going to incorporate the beginnings of the DAO structure, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So that's the second thing that Andrea was talking about, the new political system independent of our social structure. We're going to build into the platform the way to govern yourself autonomously through technology. Which DAO cultures have been building for us on the side. I would not say that I would call DAO culture necessarily benign or regeneratively minded, but we certainly appreciate what they're doing to evolve self-governance in the pursuit of personal greed. So thanks to them for using their greed for something that we can all use to make the world a better place. So when Andrea talked about a shared culture beyond sustainability, that's the value that brings people to create a Bloom. And in the individual capacity by that she spoke about, we're saying you come to us with your Bloom. What's blooming for you? Your personal passion for wellness that stemmed from that idea of what lies out beyond sustainability and into the gift. How can we give you a national logo, a website, a platform? How can we validate your efforts by saying that the unity of vision that comes at the moment that question beyond sustainability blooms is a clarity of vision that we can trust and that we believe in. And it gives us an advantage over other networks and places that have bad actors. And I'm not saying Bloom never got a bad actor or never will get a bad actor. But certainly that blossoming or blooming of the heart is the vibe that we hope to attract through our media and the things that we create. So if you go to bloomnetwork.earth, what you'll see is what's blooming in the cities and watersheds across the world. What are they doing at their own great expense in most options, although Bloom, the platform, eventually will we're setting up the payment gateway right now to eventually pay those blooms through memberships and also through grants. It becomes a portal through which your personal expressions beyond sustainability can bloom into the world. And hopefully, 1,000, 10,000 beautiful, cool neighborhoods and cities and beyond. So the last thing I would like to say is I feel like we're at a moment where we as leaders on the edge of regenerative culture and social systems probably need to start having sincere business discussions about merging initiatives. So aligning and merging initiatives, like where are we seeing that all of our initiatives are, like David with Bloom, our initiatives are nearly identical in their end goal. You have slightly, different outcomes, with focusing on net zero, but you're doing what we're doing, and so I just want to make that a bug in your guys' ear, everybody here. How can we start moving towards perhaps not having to give up our personal individuality and our beautiful branding and all the flowers that we see blooming at Bloom, that we don't want to get rid of our beautiful media slick style that we in our branding guide, but how can we all get together and create a new organization that we're all a part of to say, all right, now we've got these 30 things that we're all doing the same thing, and they've chosen an umbrella name, a main leader, or we use an autonomous structure of technology to help us govern instead of having a true leader, because we're all leaders in our own way. So thank you so much for having me to be a part of this. It's thrilling and touching, and I feel so moved to be with you today.
Awesome, Meg, as well as awesome, Meg. Thank you for that. And I think one of the things Meryl has also put in our chat a little bit of a provocation, and I love it. It's where let's go through this first round of a little bit getting to know each other and getting to know some of the initiatives that we have here. And then we still will have, almost another 50 minutes, 48 minutes. So hopefully we'll do another round where we can look for what is seeking to co-emerge. What are ways in which we could think about re-merging, as Marilyn puts it, our initiatives? What are the connection points? What are the synergy points? And so we might look at that in a second round. And in that process, we'll also look at perhaps our offers and requests, what it is that you feel you have to offer to exactly this process of our co-emergence, and what it is that we wish to request, and what is seeking to emerge and to co-emerge. I'm just reading what Marilyn's putting in live time, in real time in our chat, but good. So let's move now to our next speaker, Alexei Groshenko. Can you join and share first a little bit about yourself, and then about helping us know how we might be able to connect to your initiatives?
Thank you, dear colleagues. My name is Alexei Groshenko, and I'm executive coach, organizational psychologist, and what I've been doing for the last 20 years, it's contributing in the people and organizational development. And I'm also a co-founder of LC. Your ideas and your points are so inspirational, and I just got two suggestions, maybe, right? And one of them, I would say internal, and second is external. So internal, the continued idea, right, that we need to find a way how we can collaborate and emerge all our initiatives. I think we need to, if we want to make, let's say like that, if we want to provide for cities, for mayors, for citizens, for people there, the real example, how they can be alive, happy, and how they can create these special, unique ecosystems, I think we need to become ecosystem first, right? And yesterday, our colleagues shared several great platforms, right? Like Puran shared the platforms for the cities administrations, right? I think I forgot the names, but it was some other ideas, right? Also, me and Sergey Dmitriev we are gonna share some also, we call it OCN, Open Consulting Network, but it's not only consulting, it's an amazing framework of how we can collaborate as a professionals, as a specialist, and how we can visualize all our activities in the same on the same place, and how we can co-create a lot of ideas, products, services, searches, and other activities. So I think that's the first direction where we need to work together. We need to create our ecosystem, and after where every one of us and many our other colleagues can represent themselves, can be visible, because a lot of things are happening already, right? And they have great results. We just need to really get together. And I would invite us to remember about 4P, right? Person, people, place, and planet, right? Which Marilyn mentioned. So just focus on all of experts who covers all of these levels. That's the idea number one. And direction number two, externally, I would invite us to maybe offer for mayors, for citizens in the cities, maybe it might be framework, maybe it's going to be some live discussions or maybe sessions how they can describe what their living happy cities looks like. Because I love the idea that each city is different. And the citizens in these cities, right, they can identify their happiness and aliveness in a different ways. And I think that's who should do that, right? First, it's not us, it's them, right? And they should identify what does it mean to be alive and happy. And they can measure maybe or assess themselves of their serious space and organizations, how alive they are now and where they want to be in some certain time, right? And after, we can already offer them our products, services, solutions, ideas, searches, diagnostics, and help, right? How they can move to the point B where they want to be. That's my 2 thoughts, which I got by your inspirational ideas. Thank you so much.
Alexei, you know, what you are doing and how you are doing it is so inspirational. You are such a cornerstone to all of this initiative. And I just, for everyone here, just to know that Alexei and his guidance, his leadership, and his work here in the Living Cities Earth Initiative is just fundamental. So again, bows to you and thank you, Alexei, for all that you are and all that you be. I did want to mention before we go to some special guests that in terms of those platforms, you mentioned Puran, also Tim Olson mentioned wonderful platforms with his Earth platforms through Kodu, through Social Systems Labs. So just wanted to also make that, because even though Tim was supposed to be with us today, in this session, he has let me know that he's not going to be able to be in this session with us. He'll probably try to be back at another time, but it's quite late for him already where he is. So I would like to invite Ronit from Leap Forward, who has to be out of here in 11 minutes, just to share a few things. She's not officially on the list, but I really would love to include you and hear your voice a bit, Ronit, please.
Oh, thank you, Alexander, and hello, everyone. I'm a newbie here. I only learned about you a couple of days ago, so I'm sorry that I'm not going to be able to share more this weekend. My son had shoulder surgery, so I need to go be with him, but I did get a chance to get 2 sessions and get a feel and appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm grateful. I think the most important thing that kind of captures my heart here is the appreciation and understanding of the need for cooperation and how we're limited in our capacity to know how to cooperate. And that's been my work. Well, my background is in crisis and trauma and psychotherapy, and I've been doing that for about 40 years. In the past 10, 12 years, I've really focused on the appreciation that we as a species are having difficult time learning how to be with each other in a way that we can hear each other, feel, first of all, be with ourselves, be with each other, hear ourselves, hear each other, understand ourselves, understand each other. And of course, that then moves into our understanding where we fit into the biggest ecosystem, which is planet Earth. So if we don't know how to fit within our own ecosystem, social ecosystem, clearly we're having a difficult time fitting into the bigger ecosystem. So about 10 years ago, I began my journey of understanding what is it about us that has us blocked around our ability to, first of all, connect to ourselves, connect to each other, connect to this incredible, miraculous place we live in. It took me, well, I mean, I've been studying this for years and working, as I said, on the court, really everyday life in crisis and trauma, among other therapeutic processes. And just really understanding the neurology, the psychology, the anthropology, the evolutionary biology, even linguistics and how we understand linguistics and words. And really the ecosystem, the psychosocial ecosystem, and where are the barriers and where are the, kind of the preventions that exist for us, and where do they come from? And of course, fear is the primary thing that arises at all times, because we are a species that is wired to be afraid, which is okay, because we come from, generations and evolution of fear is a way to survive. And this new neocortex and this new prefrontal cortex is kind of a baby when it comes to understanding, the amygdala and the primary forces between, that we have to contend with. So for us to override that system would require a tremendous amount of work, as I've learned. And I've gathered a whole bunch of individuals and began to work one-on-one with them at first in terms of just educating about the neuropsychosocial in this ecosystem and unpacking us and repatterning us in a very strategic and very, very intensive way. And first did it individually and start bringing us together as a group. And we are a group of approximately, it depends on the, I would say, core group of 15, 16 people. But there's maybe another 50 around us that have come and gone as, but from all over the world and from all socioeconomic backgrounds, racial, religious, who are deeply committed to unpatterning some of those reflexive defensiveness and barriers to the me, I need to protect myself, I need to defend myself, and really discover that if we really relax that and come into coherence with each other, we're so powerful and so radiant, so brilliant. And so I've been doing that for about 10 years now, and it's the same community. And I think we've proven that we can do that. And so I want to bring this into this conversation with regard to cooperation, with regard to the brilliant cities that we can co-create. But I think we must pay attention to the interior. We must pay attention to perception and to conditioning that is blocking us, that's in our way, in the way of the heart, in the way of the spirit, in the way of what the original self knows that we belong to, and we can overcome. It requires extraordinary amount of willfulness, conviction, and losing our egos. That's the biggest one. So I'm going to leave it at that and invite a conversation around to include this conversation in the wholeness of what you're all doing.
Thank you so much, Ronit. I have just listened and paused, sat with the pause that you have shared. But you shared that just with me, and I would love it if perhaps you could share it with everyone here. And that if you can put it into the chat here, or if you have that ability, otherwise I'll do it for you, but that would be lovely.
Sure. And I'm assuming that you mean the experience and maybe also the web sense, yes, which really kind
That's
of
exactly right. The web sense, first the experience of the pause and the web sense that it leads to. But it all comes from the first screen. Don't skip the first screen, because you can skip straight to the web sense, but go through the pause itself, which is beautiful, beautiful. It is the stop, look, listen kind of engagement, where it's pause and to be. It's what I was talking about a bit earlier about the applied mindfulness and the sensory integration, and this idea of shifting from our small awareness, which is just the me, the strident individualism, the self-righteous independence. This is what can I get out of this? What's in it for me? That kind of framing to the bigger awareness, to having a way in which we can be inclusively connected, empathetically, and deeply. And I think this is really what your work, Ronit, that leads to. And within cities, that's important. Often we shut ourselves off in cities. We wall ourselves off. Indeed, we don't even know who our neighbors are, not really. And then there are other ways of creating that sense of common unity and of community. So I'm going to now move onwards, because I'm not supposed to be speaking this much. Thank you so much, Ronit.
I really appreciate it. And please feel free to email me, and would love to see how we can support and co-create, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. We need each other.
Indeed. And your son needs you now, so wonderful.
My
Thank
son
you.
needs you now.
Him.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Have a beautiful
Cheers then. All right. Just so you see when what Ronit put into the chat there, the link actually is pause.us. It's pause.us. That's actually the link to the website, and that's the one to look at, just so you know. All right. Lev, could you please share with us?
Yes, thank you. I'm just thinking how to make it very short. Well, definitely, I admire the beauty which Indra and David and Alexei and Meg and Alexander, of course, and Marilyn, we all bring into the picture. And with all the experiences and what David shared, for example, right? I never knew about all those beautiful projects which you were leading. I learned a little bit more about other people before they joined today, but David, that's also very, very impressive. And of course, it commands a lot of respect and admiration, as well as everybody's work here. Where I'm coming from as a person, and also as part of this Living Cities Earth organization, initially I had a lot of business background, so worked in those large companies all over the world with projects in 35 countries, with Harvard Business School, London Business School, etc. So I got this sort of corporate part of life with the instrument processes, etc. Then in parallel, I was doing a lot of spiritual practices in several traditions, and they looked at those inner dimensions, right, and discovered where the core strength and energy is coming from as we open our inner world and then become sort of invincible and in a way indestructible, whatever the situation is, you know, about this. And then, surprisingly, I never thought about cities, but 10 years ago, I read Marilyn's book. And the same year, or maybe the next year, I was invited by a local mayor to help him and his team to develop strategy for city development, etc., etc. And that was a very surprising entry for me into this whole city world. I never thought about cities in my life. And what I discovered is that cities is not about buildings. It's not about infrastructure. It's about agreement between people who live and create in this space. So it's really about the connection, of course, about the external, internal, collective, and individual. And what we discovered working with this and then many other cities is that who change cities? Of course, there is this government, as Marilyn says, there are 4 voices, right? But also there are a lot of other leaders from non-profit, from business environment, business circles, and active citizens, and some others, of course, some higher level authorities and tourists, etc., etc. And our observation was that when you bring people together, but not all kinds of people, you very fast discover that 90% of people are not so much engaged into all of those beautiful processes we are talking about. So it's 1% more or less who are the active leaders and about 10% who are easily engaging, right, with the innovation curve. And so our discovery was that if we talk to the leaders and we use the integral approach, which is all-encompassing, and you could talk to people in culture, in education, in infrastructure, in management, in technology, and other areas, and you look at the city as a living organism, right, the living ecosystem, it turns out that for our body to be alive, we need every cell to participate, every organ, and be in sync and sort of in harmony with each other. Otherwise, we get sick. So cities is the same situation, just a larger living system. And why it was important, we realized, so we're not about cities per se, right? We're definitely about all forms of life on all forms of levels of complexity. We just found that cities is a very interesting channel. There are, as we said, 10,000 cities on the planet and 4 million villages. And they're organized in a pretty understandable way. So we know how it's all working inside. And in our practical experience, I don't like to do things. I'm more sort of about, contemplating the world, but I discovered that we need to do things sometimes. So I participate from time to time. And I worked with several mayors on a long-term non-for-profit, for me, engagements. So I'm investing myself into this work. But other colleagues, they've been earning some consulting fees, etc. I was more putting everything together. So I looked at how cities evolve over a period of several years. And what we discovered is that if we come to a city leaders, it could be a mayor, a business leader who is engaged with the city, right? The local non-for-profit who have sort of high authority in the society. And if you bring together this group of people on a local level, about 150 to 100 people for a sort of mid-sized city, and you, during one day, you could really engage them into formulating a common vision, which most cities don't have. Some do, but most cities don't. And then they also engage, they take responsibility about their future. They realize they as a family, like we talk about the spaceship Earth, and us all of us being the crew. So the same with the cities. You sort of engage, activate, and catalyze those local processes, which Marilyn and other colleagues of ours have been doing for many years successfully. So I have some experience, again, in a practical level. And we discovered that when you talk to the right leaders, like we had one mayor who was an extraordinary human being and still is, and when he came to a city, it was in really degrading. It was a mining, mining city with the coal mine closed, so all the economy, everybody is leaving, economy is degrading, etc. And they invited him because he had some good experiences in the past. And the city was number 20 out of 20 cities in this region by several metrics, the last one. And he was applying our integral city development models and some other things for 2 years. I went there and I saw those people. He really catalyzed the whole sort of leaders circle in the city. And they have created a true wonder because cities are they have high inertia, right? Those are big systems, they change for tens of years, maybe hundreds of years. But in 2 years, his city was moved from number 20 in those rankings to number 1. And for a city, it was a small size city, 24,000 people, but still, it was really outstanding. And when he talks today about his experience, people cry because he is a very authentic leader, of course. So sorry to be so sort of talkative. So our experience and our hypothesis is that we are definitely all about cosmic stuff and planetary stuff, but how do we get there? Many channels. So cities is definitely not the only one, but it is one of the channels which we could leverage we believe, right? We don't know, but we believe in a productive way based on our prior sort of experience in different countries. And the way we do it, we need to scale sort of to increase our capacity to work with cities not cities, but leaders in those cities worldwide. So, for example, David and his team, they bring some things which I don't know, and maybe Alexander doesn't know, and maybe even Marilyn doesn't know, right? And Indra brings so much capacity in other fields like media. I know nothing about media, right? And maybe Alexander now knows something, but not enough, right? Because Indra's thing is very, very beautiful, and so on and so forth, right? Every one of us has his, her, or our team's capabilities. So it is not about creating, again, some structure which is, living cities, Earth is, the ecosystem, everybody joins it. No, what we found out, it's very important to be the principle of mutuality, right? And we call it, I am in you, you are in me. So as I think Meg mentioned about the blooming, the visuals and the identity you have developed, right? And every one of us, of course, has invested a lot of heart and emotions into building whatever we have been building. So it's not about definitely leaving or being subservient to something else, but it's interconnecting in the ways where we can connect our capacity to build a larger capacity in terms of common brand recognition, in terms of our sort of distribution channels of the information or whatever, right? In terms of lobbying capacity, because we need to work with other institutions and they normally work with those which are on the same level of complexity, right? So if you want to talk to United Nations, it's better that we represent something which is of comparable, right, size and level of complexity. So to make it short, my limited vision suggests that we could definitely unite in many different ways. It will take time to explore, and we don't need to stress out. Everything will fall in place anyway. So in terms of practical steps, on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we have a Living Cities Earth co-founder meeting in in the beautiful mountains of Switzerland. And Robert Fisher, who is quietly sitting on the sides, he's the president of Living Cities Earth Association, which is registered in Zurich. And he happened to have a sort of family, small but beautiful estate in the Swiss mountains. So he invites all of us, the co-founders, to come and have an in-person discussion about our future. We call it LC Co-Founders Camp. Very informal. We are cooking ourselves, talking to each other, and really having a lot of fun. So if you have time and ability, please do join. It's from America, it's a little bit far away. I'm in Seattle right now, but I think it's feasible. That's number one in terms of practical steps. Of course, we can have all the online discussions, and clearly, I think Alexander and Marilyn and Alexei, everybody would, and Robert, we would all be very happy if Indra, you, and Meg, you, and David, and other of our colleagues, you join the co-founder circle. We're in the very, very beginning. We believe that we'll be growing as my small sort of daughter in the position of being babies for another year or two, and then 100+ years we'll be sort of growing to become a little bit more mature. And we would be very happy, of course, to be part of your activities, right? So it's not you joining something, Living Cities Earth, for example, but it's really interconnecting our activities. And when David has some things going on, we all come together and support whatever he is doing. Indra is the same, so on and so forth. So sorry for my English. Sometimes I ramble for a while and then I think, gosh, maybe nobody has understood a single word from what I said because I have a strong accent. And anyway, so those are a few thoughts. And again, sorry, I was not sleeping too much, so I'm a little bit slow in my expression. But Alexander, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Whatever Lev said, I didn't understand anything, but okay. I'm kidding. Lev, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you, thank you. And this is the spirit. This is exactly what we need to do, to be weaving. And those who are watching the gallery view, while you were talking, Robert Fisher didn't turn on his video, but he put a thumbs up. So he's definitely tracking with all of what we're doing here as well, when we're going to be seeing each other in Switzerland. So that would be lovely. So we have about 20 minutes left in this, and I would like to make this last go round to be a weaving session. But before we get that, I would like to invite Anna for any reflections that you have to share with us about what your connections and what you have to share, please. Can anyone else hear her? Because I can't. You're unmuted, so. Maybe you could do an interpretive dance.
At the bottom left of your screen, you have a mute button. There's an arrow to the right of that mute button where you can see your options for microphone and speaker.
In the bottom, for me, it's in the bottom left of my screen. Okay, so Anna, I'm going to give you a chance to do two things. One is to type into the chat anything you wish that we could capture, because we might not be able to hear you. The second thing is to see if you can get this resolved, and I'll come and check in with you after we go through a couple of others, right? So see if you can resolve your audio thing, but don't waste too much time on that. I would love rather your presence here. And yes, maybe you can type a few things in as well. So in the meantime, while Anna sorts the audio, let's do one other round here. Again, we have exactly 20 minutes now. And what I would love to do is pick up on what Lev was calling for, putting out that call that maybe we can do the weaving now. So we've heard each other. We know what Living Cities Earth and what the Earth Day is about. So we're now already past that point of the generative dialogue. Now we can move perhaps into the strategic dialogue, the conversation for possibilities, and eventually to a tactical dialogue, a conversation for action. But right now, looking at what if we were to dream together, and if you were to say, you know, what I could do if I connected with David, with Alexei, with Indra, with Lev, with anyone, or with Ronit, who had shared earlier, what we could do. I'm just fantasizing. Yes, let's fantasize. We got to weave. We got to weave and weave ourselves together. And just to remember, by the way, Meg is the Chief Information Officer at Bloom. So in terms of knowing all of the aspects also about the platform, the communication and so on, an expert right here as well for these things. Wonderful you're in this grouping. Let's start off again in the same order, Indra, and then we go to David, bearing in mind that we have now 19 minutes because I've talked too long. So what are the connection points you see?
Yeah, thank you. For myself, it's taken us, I guess, 6 years to get to the point where we are focusing on 4 particular, strands, the 4 incubators. But we're also conscious that there's 2 aspects of each one of those. One is the conversation that we're having, and one is the actual architecture that we can build. So the conversations that we can have, I think this is the easiest part of us being able to interconnect, to regularly have conversations like this, to develop ourselves through the conversation, because the actual collaboration is much harder than cooperation, in my view. And for me to hear about what everybody else is doing is material for everything that I'm doing. However, I would very much welcome being in more of these conversations and for everyone else to be in our conversations. The second part of it is in building this architecture that we're trying to build, coming from so many different places in the world, technology is going to be absolutely key. And we need money for that. We need, the building of the connectivity, so to speak, and a real, parallel polis that is really an example of a different kind of democracy that is self-organizing the way that we're all describing it. This needs funding. And I'm really lost as to looking for a good funder for this kind of work. So that's my 2 pieces of the puzzle. The conversation is, without this discourse, nothing will shift. This is the paradigm shift. We're already doing it in this conversation. And then the building of it requires technology, and that needs funding.
Wonderful. I mean, wonderfully astute. Yes, this is where we need to be going. Thank you for that. It is a challenge. It's not like wonderful gift. It is a challenge. And these are the things we need to be addressing. Thank you. I'm going to put here a little link. It's a little bit of it's fun, but at the same time, it's serious. It's about Indra's net that I referred to earlier. It's not her direct creation, but there it is. Moving to David. David, how do you feel? How do you see these related? It's not just how you feel, but how you see these things being related, and based on what Indra was saying and what we all said before, please.
One of the experiences we had during the Earth Run was that we recognized that to create peace on Earth, we needed to understand the notion of cooperation. And so we identified projects across the world, 1,500 of them, based on their cooperation strategies and what was, in fact, the distillation of best practice. One of our 7 actions in the game is how to cooperate for the common good. So we have been building a lot of intelligence and skills and experiences and examples and case studies, if you will, on the how. Part of our work is the how. Also, in order to create the first Earth Run, everyone had to see enough value so they were willing to take what they were doing and engage with this because it made what they were doing more effective and better. So one of the core strategies in our 20 partners that we put together for the Peace on Earth by 2030 initiative is a consultative process where we, Empowerment Institute, work with that partner and help them be more effective than they would be otherwise through cooperation. In other words, people don't have a lot of discretionary time to do beyond what their current mission is, even though they might wish to. And for them to sustain their engagement, it has to be perceived as enough value. And so that is a whole thing that is part of what I spend a lot of my time doing, number one. Number two, what will allow enough people to want to cooperate in the first place? And what we've concluded was you need a transcendent vision, big enough, game-changing enough, impactful enough, measurable enough, so that people want to play in it. They want to be part of it in the first place because they see it just being amazing. So that's what we've been building. And the more audacious, the better. So putting a idea into the global psyche, peace on earth in 7 years, is either crazy, which for some it is, or audacious, or both, but it's provocative and it engages people in asking a question. What would allow that to be possible? What if we thought that boldly and that audaciously and that creatively? And then once that conversation begins, and then they start to kick the tires and they say, wow, there's something here. If enough of us practice these 7 actions, we could actually, that would be an outcome of it. How can I make that happen? So we begin a journey where we're opening up the imagination, and we begin a journey where once the imagination is open, there's a lot of APIs, if you will, for how to dock and be part of this. Not only to be part of it indirectly through your association, but the synergy effect of being part of all these other partnerships. So that's the art form. I would say early stage, we have some experiences. And I'll just add one more puzzle piece. The Cool Block program, another domain, gets people on a block to play together and cooperate because we're making the block a better place to live. We're increasing the livability, we're increasing the resiliency, we're increasing the social connectivity. And so people say, yes, I want to do it. And we're getting 45% of the people on the block to say yes to that, who are invited by their neighbors. So that's the macro, the micro, and then there's the macro, but it's the same principles in play. So there's a lot of deep knowledge, how we might contribute this to what my co-panelists, including yourself, Alexander, are asking for. I mean, the bigger the aspiration, the more attractive I am. So 1,000 living cities gets my attention because your aspiration level is commensurate with the kind of change that's required and impact that's required. A Planet A game plan that changes the parallel direction of cities gets my interest. So, that's where I focus, is anyone who's going for a game changer, anyone who's developed enough capacity to be able to be credible around that game changer is of interest. Because if I can add my value there and I can get the synergy effect, then magic can happen. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Looking for the synergy effect, that sweet spot. Well, good. And this is what we are exactly doing here. So thank you so much for that. And just, by the way, just want to say how in awe I am of us. Because the fact that we are showing up, this is the Petri dish. And my gosh, what a beautiful place to be. We have to be the systems we want to see in the world, but we're not doing it for others, yes, for future generations, but we also have to be that change.
Yeah.
Let me just do a quick check-in here with Anna. How's it going? Sound?
Let's try. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good evening from Greece. I'm in Crete. And thank you for all your inputs and inspirations and talks, keynotes. I'm just coming out of what Marilyn described as delta and gamma, up to the gamma phase. And I'm on my way up. I'm a neurokinesiologist. And I've come to this village here in Crete 1.5 years ago. And I experienced huge resistance, to say at least. against somebody who is not mainstream, not drinking alcohol, not going out partying. And I'm actually doing the therapy work that the lady before, I don't remember her name, was talking about. I'm doing this for 15, 16 years now. I had my own practice in Germany and then lived in Indonesia for a couple of years. So at the moment, I'm in the process of finding networks where I can participate, because I would also like to contribute my work to the whole community. I've spoken to the Transition Town movement already like 10, 12 years ago. I met Nils Aguilar, who made that film about the Transition Town movement, in person when he had the preview in person. And since then, I'm interested in following all these movements around the globe. But I've never really engaged with it. And so I'm on the verge right now to step into a role like that. So I have some visions what I want to do, but I'm not at the point at the moment to really come up with a group or a link or something. I'm in the process of coming out of huge adversity and adverse circumstances. And I've actually lived through these whole processes of what can happen in a community, being not of that origin and doing things that the mainstream doesn't accept, alternative therapies. I had all sorts of attacks going on, and this is also part of the audio problem, because also technology got hacked. This is why I nodded when Indra spoke, and she said we need also a platform where we have media access to actually communicate the internals and the ideas. And I also would like to add that we also need to have some form of cooperation with the legal system, like trustworthy people also in that area, because this is also something that I'm dealing with one-on-one right now, that I have a lot of corrupt, local police, all sorts of things going on around me. So there needs to be a level of connection to the old systems on that level as well, and to also be able to communicate the morals and ethics according which a community needs to function. Just speaking from personal experience now for the last 1.5 years.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yes. Very good reminders for our humaning. So we have 5 minutes and we still have several people to go through. So I'm going to ask you to take 1 minute each. I'm sorry about that, but just 1 minute. Meg, what are the connection points you see?
I think that we, as in thought leaders around the world doing this work at our own expense, don't really need anything but to be together. So, and find structures and ways that we combine, merge, and become bigger and stronger. Certainly we have a good deal more to connect about than an authoritarian type energy that we see rising in the world. They have nothing to create the camaraderie and connect with the spirit of love and kindness in the world that all of us engender. And I guess I just want to say I think this is the most important work in the world, and I want to say to my friend Alexander for facilitating this and putting this together that you've been doing this work your whole life. You've dedicated so much of your time to it, unpaid in so many capacities, and I just want to give credence to how much impact your humaning makes in this space and how much it means to all of us. And thank you so much. And I just, like I said, what a privilege to even have the information and technology to be in a space with you guys today. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. We are modeling the humaning so beautifully. Thank you so much. Alexei, 1 minute.
Thank you, Alexander. I also support the appreciation of your energy and your host as well as the Lev's efforts, of course, and all colleagues. I think we just need to start or maybe continue working with what we already have, right? So we have, within these 3 days, we have a lot of beautiful people, beautiful solutions, ideas, resources. After that, we just need to put that together. I mean, in LC co-founders and everyone who is going to join us, right? To put it together and identify the ways how we're going to do it and make a plan, at least for next several months or maybe a year. And also one more idea, maybe we need to really keep balance between thinking and doing, because the life is changing so fast. And sometimes to start doing together something might be better than just preparing, waiting, thinking, right? That's my approach. I'm more focusing on creating the changes here and now, right? And maybe we can really balance all our theoretical and practical experiences together and put it in the right directions and to see the beautiful results. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's it. This is the spirit. I'm going to pass it now to Lev. I'll ask you to pass it back to me briefly and just before we go to the next meeting. Thank you.
Excellent. Picking up on what Indra has mentioned in the beginning, I think that funding would be important. We're doing fine without external funding, but it would be important if we really want to go on scale and create platforms, etc. In my experience, I was working again a long time ago in one of those multinational companies, large companies, and there are thousands of them. They support various, let's call them positive initiatives. So we were supporting Save the Children at the time and investing millions of euros into this platform. And every large sort of bank company, they do support various initiatives. So we have a sense that in about half a year, maybe a year, we could be mature enough to bring sort of a well-formed idea with some, cases already, how it works on the ground. And the scale, of course, the planet itself, but also some specifics like the 10,000 cities on Earth, etc., meaning the people. We can form the sort of project proposal to be sort of relevant both for larger foundations, like I mentioned yesterday. One of my friends works in Bill Gates Foundation, and Bill Gates is looking for sort of global initiatives which would really work, right? And he has lots of money he wants to invest, but he cannot find what is really working, right? There are many ideas, but how would it work? So it's not necessarily him, I'm just giving an example. So many corporations, large foundations, as well as other sources of funding could be quite possible. I think if we come up and create this common, let's say, platform project initiative or whatever is the name, which would show this is the ultimate vision, this is the strategy, how we get there, those are the resources, the capacities, the team basically, etc. So I think we could start working on this, better understand, of course, our capacities, support each other in whatever projects we are currently doing, and there will be points of interconnection and mutual reinforcement. Alexander, on to you.
Thank you. We're just a little over time. I'm going to make this less than a minute, and then I'm going to suggest a form of transition to the next session. So Marilyn, I hope that you are listening and ready. So what I wanted to share is first, the dictum, the admonition to think as a person of action and to act as a person of thought. And again, as one of my Tibetan Lama friends, he says, we have to learn to think in a new way, and he points to his heart. This is the thinking. It's not the thinking, it's the thinking here. So wonderful. My hope is then that in this engagement, we don't say, oh, what a wonderful experience. Thanks so much. Good luck. I'm so inspired by you. Bye. So the idea here is that now what we say is, okay, how can we stay connected? And we continue to explore this proactively. We can come fishing for you, but the best thing to do is to come fishing for us, come fishing for each other. So this is what we will be doing in exploring our ongoing interconnection. My suggestion now is I would like to invite Marilyn to turn on her camera, to share some thoughts, because we would like to hear from her, and to also provide us the transition to suggest what is the next panel that we're coming up with, because she's leading that. And to say a few words around that, and then maybe we'll have a 1-minute break with our wonderful video again about Earth Day while we take a break and do the transition. Marilyn, are you there?
I'm here, which is a miracle. This is way past my bedtime.
I'm sure.
And I was a little startled for you to say that I was leading the next panel, but that's a recorded one with Daniel Christian Wall. So phew, it's already done. So we used catch-up time. Yeah. So if you want me to say something about Daniel Christian Wall, many of you know his focus
before that, Marilyn, before you say something, could you share anything from what you've heard in this panel? Because I know you've been sharing notes. And so what have you been left? What would you like to share with us?
I think that the whole opportunity to create what David's called the moonshot is calling us. So we have to dare to be big enough, as I think several of you have challenged us, and we simply have to be courageous and take our power and do it. I do think we have to find an action. What's our early win? And some of us may already be working on the projects that we could all conspire to work with. And that would be part of what Jude and I talked about, Jude Curavan and I, about catalyzing. So that might mean an opportunity cost for some of us not pursuing whatever project we're working on right now in service to somebody else's, so we could get it, so we could get that early collaborative win. And so I think that's worth I think we have to talk through that more, but I think it would be worth investing in that. I was really like, I was not normally stay on to listen to another panel after I had given my keynote, but I couldn't stop listening. And I was really riveted by the energy here. And I know many of the people who are participating, and I just am so inspired by what they have been doing. And the very idea that, oh, now they're together in the same room, Indra and say David, who I don't think I've met before. And to hear Lev talk about, his capacity for being an impresario of the future, I would say. He's good at that. And so I feel like the kinds of practical suggestions that Meg is putting forward as well is that we have quite an impressive capacity with just the people on the screen here. And I guess it would be, is this an opportunity that enough of us or all of us can't resist? Is it that attractive enough just to be able to take a step that moves something towards more life and all of the simultaneous actions that Jude and I were discussing, the ones that I put out for the 7th generation to realize, and she and I rolled that back to, no, we got to do it all now. All the generations acting together. So I see Saeed has joined us too. So I was happy to be with him last night. And yeah, he's saying, if not now, when? If not us, who? If not where? If not where we want to go, what is it that we're being called to do? So yeah, I feel this is Earth Day. This is a bit of synchronicity that we're all together here. Maybe we really ought to pause and listen to what Gaia is saying. Yeah. I think that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. Can you now lead us to the next one and maybe give us a 1-minute break so people can go and do the transitions they need to do, and then we can go on to the next session.
So you just wanted to give me a little, you want me to give it a little promo of what, so Daniel Christian Wall, who is, designs regenerative cultures, he and Marina Demchenko and I really explored a way of being with systems and working on locality. And we had a really delightful start that surprised me completely. I always forget how, think Daniel Christian is a lot like Alexander. He knows everything about everything and all the references. So he started with Patrick Geddes. So if any of you know anything about Scotland and Patrick Geddes, who is the man that did 2 things that we could be grateful for. He really is responsible for creating the whole study of sociology. It did not exist before him. And in 1890, yes, 1890, he coined the term think global, act local. And he put that to good effect by cleaning up what we now know as the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, because it was a slum. And nobody there wanted to support life there. And Geddes worked not only on the edge in Scotland, but all over the world, and especially in India and Jerusalem, because people here weren't ready to hear his ideas. But he did change the Royal Mile, and that's very visible unto today. He created the Outlook Tower that still exists, and that enabled people to actually not only to think globally, but to go into a space and imagine the globe, because it was in the layers of the ways that people would be able to experience the macro to the micro and in reverse. So that's some of what we explored. I'm giving you now 1 minute, only 1 minute, to have a little break and then come back and listen to Daniel and Marina and myself. Thank you, everyone, and happy Earth Day. Some of you have more day than me left to experience more happy Earth Day. Thank you.
Wow, you have made it. You just watched amazing insights from experts of Living Cities Earth ecosystem. We welcome you to the Living Cities Earth experience and hope that we are going for a long ride as we take care of ourselves, our communities, our cities, and our planet. Thank you and welcome.